Punk rock is kind of like pornography. No one can really explain exactly what it is, but you know it when you see it. It's mosh pits and mohawks. It's DIY and dumpster diving. It's integrity, insanity, and so much more. It isn't just music, but it's a lifestyle, an ethos. Not everyone feels this way though. Some people wear punk like a costume that can be taken off and on when it's convenient. They'll wear a Misfit shirt and tell you that their favorite song is Dig Up Her Bones. Fucking poser. What exactly is a poser, you may be asking? I'll let this guy explain.
Posers were people that look like punks, but they did it for fashion.
This is Steve-O, the punkest guy in Utah. This is Bob, Heroin Bob, the other punkest guy in Utah. Together, the two spend their first post-college year wandering the streets of Salt Lake City doing nothing. But not just doing nothing, they are doing nothing with a purpose. They're wasting their educated minds in order to fight the system. If that doesn't make sense to you, good. You're starting to get it. As Steve-O and Bob squander their higher education accolades, they interact with other members of their social circle, their tribe. This is Sean. One time he took 100 hits of acid and tried to stab his mom. Now he's unemployable and begging for change on the corner. This is Jen. She's hardcore. She's a carnivore. Except her hippie brother convinced her to get off her meds, so now she's off her meds. This is Mike. I know what you're thinking. He looks like a nerd. He looks like a nerd, but he's not.
I'm unnervingly polite, but I'm also capably violent.
Get a couple of beers from this guy, and he'll destroy an entire neighborhood's worth of windshields. But he's bailing to go to school, leaving his tribe behind to go save the rainforest or something. Guess he's just a nerd after all. If you're starting to notice a pattern in all of these stories, you are not alone. After one fateful party, Steve-O begins to notice as well. Because that's the thing about Steve-O. He's dumb, but he's not dumb. For all of his vitriol, for all of his anarchy mumbo and his chaos jumbo, he's aware of all the contradictions and flaws in his ideology. These flaws and these contradictions are thrown in his face when he meets a girl and falls in love. This is Brandy. She is the hardest of cores. She doesn't wear a uniform like all the other posers. She dresses how she wants. She doesn't fight, because fighting is a structure. Fighting is to establish power. Power is government, and government is not anarchy. But what makes her really hardcore is that she's smart. She thinks about things, synthesizes them in her mind, and forms a novel conclusion. And at the end of the day, is there anything more punk rock than critical thinking? Brandy destroys Steve-O's entire ideology with a few simple questions, and that causes his life to come crashing down around him. Well, that and this.
Only posers die, you fucking idiot!
So he packs it in. He shaves his hair, changes his clothes, and goes off to Harvard like the rich kid that he has always been. Looks like he was never really a punk. Looks like it was really he that was the poser all along. Is what I would say if I was a pretentious art snob. Wait, I am a pretentious art snob. Fuck! Fine. It's what I would say if I was a dumb pretentious art snob. Is Steve-O kind of a poser? I mean, yeah, I guess a little bit. But anyone that is into punk was a poser at one point. We can't all be stizza crack. Born in the gutter and chained to the radiator of a squat basement for 16 years. There's always going to be someone that is more punk than us. There's always going to be someone that is more punk than them, and so on and so forth until eventually we arrive at Jello Biafra. The point is, we all start somewhere. We hear an Offspring song on the radio and fall in love, and that infatuation causes us to dig deeper. The Offspring turns us on to Rancid. Rancid turns us on to Op Ivy. Op Ivy turns us on to Choking Victim, and before we can say anti-disestablishmentarianism, we're spray painting our t-shirts and have sprouted Liberty Spikes. Because punk rock is awesome. It boggles the mind that anyone can listen to this music, one of the purest forms of artistic expression that exists, and not want it. So we decide to become a punk. But it's not enough to look like a punk. Just looking like a punk makes us a poser. And a poser is the most deplorable thing that one can be. Maybe even worse than a Nazi punk. And Nazi punks can fuck off, but I digress. The point is that it isn't enough to adopt the punk rock aesthetic. One must also adopt the punk rock mindset. But how, you may be asking? Well, the answer is simple. Start throwing around punky buzzwords. It's okay if you don't know what those buzzwords mean. Every time you say capitalism is oppression, your punk rock credibility goes up by 0.5%. Every whip it you do actually brings you that much closer to being Johnny Hobo. You have lice? Hell yeah, dude, lice are punk as fuck. But as you spend more and more time as a punk, you begin to realize a lot of these ideas and activities actually kinda suck. Your rhetoric is not but incoherent gobbledygook, regurgitated ad nauseum that will never amount to any real societal change. Capitalism is not oppression. It's an economic system that can maximize the freedom of the individual as long as it's regulated in such a fashion that it doesn't allow for the exploitation of those of lesser means. The whippets weren't making you a subversive individualist, they're just destroying your brain cells and making you objectively dumber. Lice aren't cool. They're just tiny little fuckers that make your head really itchy. This evolution of thought process through experience is exactly what happens to Steve-O over the course of the runtime of SLC Punk. He realizes the pitfalls of a punk rock predilection and casts those suboptimal sentiments aside. But that doesn't mean he came away from this time in his life with nothing to show for it. For all of its platitudes and hollow buzzwords, there are so many things in punk that are genuinely very valuable. Dedication, authenticity, individualism, critical thinking. All of these things are core tenets of the punk ideology, and all of these things are so much more substantial than a mohawk and a slogan. These are things that Steve-O will take with him to his law career at Harvard and beyond. And you know what? Those yuppie twats will never know what hit them. How can they? Their entire lives they've played by the rules, so how can they possibly contend with someone unfettered by such paltry things as norms? There is little in this world so beautiful and terrible to behold as a punk with a purpose. So no, Steve-O is not a poser. He wasn't a poser at the start of the film, and he isn't a poser at the end of the film. What he is a punk. A punk going through the evolution that every punk goes through, reveling in the chaos that is the insanity of the quote-unquote punk lifestyle, before moving on and taking the lessons learned in these early stages out into the real world. To illustrate this point, I would like to draw your attention to two bands, Minor Threat and Fugazi. Musically, Minor Threat is as close to the platonic form of punk rock as a band can get. They play blisteringly fast music, accented by vocals that are shouted rather than sung. They're not my favorite band, but in terms of pure sound, they are the best band. When Minor Threat was formed in 1980, frontman Ian MacKaye was 18 years old, and this youthful fervor is on full display in the music he helped create at the time. The song Seeing Red is a prime example of this. These 64 seconds of music perfectly encapsulate the rage of youthful, probably male, anger. And that last bit, ugh. Let me play it for you real quick. Please don't copyright ding me, Mr. MacKaye. I'm a big fan. Fucking chills. Every goddamn time. But after Minor Threat disbanded, Ian MacKaye checked out of hardcore. Well, not exactly. According to this Wikipedia section with a citation needed, Mr. MacKaye didn't check out of hardcore. Hardcore checked out of him. After his brother got clocked at a Minutemen show, he swung back before realizing that the violence in the scene was stupid. Stupidity that he no longer wished to participate in. So he left. 2 years later, he came back with a band called Fugazi. Musically, Fugazi does not sound very punk. I mean, they have a piano. Enough said. But in terms of their ideology and practices, there could not be a more clear embodiment of the punk rock spirit. They put out all of their own music, refusing to ever sign to a record label. They didn't produce or sell any merch because they were so committed to the DIY ethos. They strived to have their concert tickets be as affordable as possible, aiming for a price of only $5, and turned down gigs that would inflate that price. They refused to do interviews with popular magazines that sold booze and cigarettes because of their adherence to this straight-edge ideology. And they didn't let people fight at their shows. If someone was getting too rowdy, that person would be escorted away and their $5 ticket price would be refunded. Fugazi doesn't sound all that quote-unquote punk. They don't appear all that quote-unquote punk, but it's hard to look at the way they conduct themselves and come away with anything other than Fugazi is punk as fuck, particularly when you compare these guys to some of the more contemporary Mohawk bands. I have said for some time now that growing up is learning to appreciate Fugazi, and I feel like the arc of Steve-O is reflective of that sentiment. Punk isn't about how tall your mohawk is, how many beers you can drink, or how many rednecks you can beat down. It's about what you think, how you think, and most importantly, how you behave. It's a mentality that stays with you well past your rambunctious salad days and informs who you grow into as an adult. And if you disagree with me, I don't know, fuck you. Fucking poser.